Twisted terror, terror's cry. Twisted terrors in the body, that funny man of fuse that
You're watching Twisted Terrors. Now your host, Zomboy.
What is going on, horror fanatics? Zomboy here, and you're watching another episode of Twisted Terrors. On this episode, I'm going to be talking about 2026's The Bone Temple. This movie was directed by Nia DaCosta. It's rated R, comes in at an hour and 49 minutes long. IMDb has this one rated as a 7.5 out of 10. Letterboxd has it rated as a 3.9 out of 5. The tagline for this one is "Fear is the new faith." So this movie starts off right where 28 years later is left off. You have Spike. He is traveling with the Jimmies. They're the track-wearing Teletubby Power Rangers from the end of 28 years later. You can tell right away Spike is scared, but it starts off in an old abandoned building in a swimming pool that's empty, and Spike is to fight one of the Jimmies to the death to become a finger, which is like a henchman of Sir Lord Jimmy. He's the guy that runs the gang. Jimmy is the kid from 28 years later in the beginning that watches his family get murdered, and his father is the priest of the church, and he hides underneath a grate watching his father get ripped to shreds and then lead the army of the dead. This scene is brutal because Spike is got to be 10 years younger than this kid he's fighting, and they're fighting to the death. And the Jimmy is basically just toying with Spike.
Dark Lord, are you ready to see if the boy has what it takes to be a finger? Okay.
And Spike ends up pulling his pants down and then stabbing him in the thigh. It just happens to get an artery, killing the Jimmy quickly. The Jimmies consist of these. I'll read them from left to right. Jemima, Jimmy Snake, Jimmy Jimmy, Jimmy Jones, Sir Lord Jimmy Crystal, Jimmy Fox, Jimmy Inc., and Jimmy Shite. So you learn that they're a gang ran by Sir Lord Jimmy Crystal. They are all named Jimmy. They just have a different last name. So when Spike wins the fight, they rename him Jimmy as well. Spike is traumatized from killing this kid, which is a brutal, bloody scene, which was amazing. And then he starts traveling with the Jimmies. Next cuts to like a hunter. He's hunting in the woods. He runs into Samson, and Samson tears his head off, including his spine. He pulls a predator. So Samson's back in this movie, which I was glad because I really liked Samson. This movie basically has multiple parts. You have a story following the Jimmies. You get the story of who the Jimmies are, why they are who they are, what they are doing. Then you also get Dr. Kelson. He's still at the Bone Temple. He is working with Samson, the alpha, still subduing him constantly to the point where Samson is addicted to morphine. And when Kelson shoots him with a morphine dart, makes him go into a trance.
I wonder if you understand anything I say. If not the meaning of my words, the meaning in the tone of my voice. That I am no threat to you. I mean you no harm.
They sit down together, and this movie follows these two as they become closer and closer, while Dr. Kelson is trying to figure out how the virus works. Also, a pretty amazing scene. I really liked Samson, so I was stoked to see that. And then you get the Jimmies run into Dr. Kelson. Of course, there's going to be some kind of conflict there as well at the Bone Temple. You get the end of the movie. So at this point, I haven't said too much when it comes to spoilers. From this point on, I'm just going to start spoiling this. So if you haven't seen this movie, stop the video, go watch it. If you've seen it, then you can join in on the fun. So you find out that Sir Lord Jimmy Crystal thinks his father is the devil. His father speaks to him into his mind and tells him what to do. His dad guides him basically through the wasteland, telling him what to do, when to do it. He's got henchmen, which he called the Fingers, and the Fingers make a fist, and the Fingers do pretty much anything Jimmy tells them to because they are Satanists. And they believe that Jimmy is the son of the devil and that they need to go through the wasteland finding survivors, and they need to offer their souls to his father, the devil. And so you get this scene where the Jimmies infiltrate a farmhouse of survivors and they're feeding them, and you could tell the whole family doesn't want them there, but they are accepting that they're there.
Are we not welcome?
You know you're not.
Well, I do now. Oh, no. We've got off on the wrong foot. It's because we haven't been properly introduced.
And Jimmy's kind of toying with them and joking with them, and then it ends with this brutal scene of them taking them to the barn where they offer their souls to the devil by tying them up and skinning them alive. And it is a brutal scene. And Spike is there, but he is getting sick, throwing up. So Spike is stuck. He is scared to even try to get away from the Jimmies, but he doesn't know how to get away. And at this point, Spike is now wearing one of the blonde wigs in a jumpsuit that they all wear, these like velour Adidas style jumpsuits. The Jimmies are frightening, but I loved the story of the Jimmies. So, and then one of the Fingers, while she's out on patrol, sees Dr. Kelson working with Samson. And of course, Kelson wears iodine on his body, so he appears very red. And she thinks Kelson is the devil, and he is with an alpha who's not killing him. So she is convinced it is Satan. So she tells Jimmy about this, and Jimmy goes, and Jimmy knows right away that's not his father, but he tells his Fingers that it is, and that he's gonna go down and talk with him. Jimmy has a conversation with Dr. Kelson all about the Bone Temple, why he's red. They kind of have a laugh because Dr. Kelson finds out he thinks he's the devil. Jimmy pretty much tells him, we have a problem. My people that are not too far away, they think you are Satan. I told them you are, and you have a problem because if you don't pretend like you're Satan, I'm gonna feed you your own intestines.
Because if you can't help me with my problem, I'm going to force feed you your own intestines until you can no longer breathe. I like you. You're easy to talk to. Not sure I've ever liked anyone before.
Thank you.
So he agrees to put on a show for the Fingers and to come back in a couple days. And so that is the plans. You get this scene where you have Dr. Kelson working with Samson. He's sedating him and working with him. And you get this crazy scene where Dr. Kelson has him in a trance, basically, and he's telling him, I'm running out of morphine, and we're not going to be able to do this anymore, so I'm going to have to put you down. And he's got an injection, tells Samson he's sorry, and he puts the needle into his arm, and Samson speaks. He's staring up the sky, looking at the moon, and he says, moon.
Sleep well, Samson. Moon. Did you? Samson. You spoke. Say it again. Moon.
Dr. Kelson pulls out the injection and he says, what did you say? He says, moon again. So Samson can speak now. which gives Dr. Kelson even more of a reason to start looking. So that night, Dr. Kelson starts reading all these books about medicine and treating psychosis and all this thing. And he comes up with a formula of medication he thinks might treat the virus that Samson has. He ends up giving it to Samson. You have two scenes going on. You have Dr. Kelson getting ready for the fingers to show up. He is gassing up a generator, putting candles all over the place. He makes a giant crucifix and puts it upside down and leans it against the skull structure in the middle of the bone temple. He gets his record player out, picks out a record, does his makeup. Then you also have scenes of Samson, who's walking around and he's starting to have memories of who he was before he had the virus. He remembers being on a train, and he ended up walking to that train and getting on the train, and he starts having memories of him being on that train. And then you realize the other infected are starting to stare at Samson and following him as well. He gets on the train and he's hallucinating someone collecting tickets, and he's sitting on this old abandoned train, and they come up and they ask for his ticket, and Samson says out loud,
I don't have a ticket.
and all the zombies start attacking him. I keep on calling them zombies, they're infected. They start attacking him and spitting blood all over him, and he's breaking these infected in half, snapping their spines. So you have Samson returning to some kind of cognitive self, but he has all of his strength. His eyes aren't red anymore, so they're slowly transforming back to their original color, but he's still got the skin that looks like an infected, and he's still massive, but he's getting overran. But it is an amazing scene. And then it cuts back to Kelson, and the fingers are showing up to the bone temple, and there's candles lit all over the place, and all of a sudden, Iron Maiden kicks on, Number of the Beast, which he starts dancing and singing along, and it's playing on speakers all over the place, and he blows this hallucinogenic drug in their face and starts performing for them. And you can imagine the age of these kids that are the Fingers, the Jimmies. They've probably never heard music before. You gotta imagine there's no power. These kids probably have never owned a record or any way to play it. So they're hearing this for the very first time. Everything's on fire. They're hallucinating because they're on some kind of drug. It is an amazing scene. I love this scene. It made me smile. And then he comes to the Jimmies and tells them, I need you to listen to Sir Lord Jimmy Crystal, to everything he says, never defile him. You guys are doing a great job. I want you to go get more fingers. I want you to go decimate more people and spread the word. As he's saying this, he recognizes Spike, who's wearing a mask because he doesn't want him to see who he is. He walks up and he removes the mask, and he sees how scared Spike is, and he says, one more thing I need you guys to do for me. And he tells them, you know how they sacrificed Jesus? I need you to do the same thing. I need you to sacrifice Sir Lord Jimmy Crystal because he's the son of the devil. And Jimmy Crystal starts laughing, and who would do that? And he points at the fingers. And as he's telling him to do this, Sir Lord Jimmy Crystal says, he's not the devil. If he was, I wouldn't be able to do this. And he pulls out a knife and he stabs Kelson in the stomach. He ends up going down. The only ones left is you have Jimmy Crystal, who's been stabbed. You have Jimmy Inc., who is the girl that's kind of been protecting Spike through this whole thing, and Spike. And so they end up taking Sir Lord Jimmy Crystal and they nail him to the upside down stake, crucifying him upside down. They realize that Dr. Kelson's not going to make it. His stab wound is not good. Dr. Kelson ends up going unconscious. You have Jimmy Inc. and Spike. They run away. And Samson shows up, walks up to Dr. Kelson and tells him thank you.
Kelson. Thank you.
picks him up and starts carrying him away, I think, to do what Dr. Kelson does. I think he's going to add him to the Bone Temple. And Sir Lord Jimmy Crystal is hallucinating, probably not only from the drug he's on, but also is bleeding out. And he sees Samson as the devil with these giant horns. And, you know, Samson's massive. So it's a really cool scene. The last scene is you have Jim, Cillian Murphy, the original from 28 Days Later. He's in a cottage with his daughter, which I'm assuming is with Selena, but Selena's not there, and they hear voices. So they go outside and they see Spike and Jimmy Inc. running away from a horde of zombies. And the girl asks Jim if they're gonna help, and he says, of course, and they grab some guns and start running. And that is the end of the movie. I'll be honest with you, the first time I watched this movie, I was so excited to go do a video because I absolutely loved every second of this movie, but I thought I should marinate it on a little bit before I do that. And then I watched it again recently, and I loved it just as much as the first time. They basically took all my issues from 28 years later and they fixed them. I wish they would have done more on Dr. Kelson, which they did on this one. They really elaborate on Dr. Kelson, who he used to be, who he is today. I love his character so much. He's so pure. He is so good on screen. Samson also. I was so glad Samson was a large part of this because I liked that character. I thought it was interesting. The whole alpha zombie thing I thought was pretty neat, but you know, that could go south pretty easily, but I liked that character. And then the Jimmies, I will be honest with you, I loved 28 Years Later till the end. The last 4 minutes of that movie were confusing, and I get it. They were supposed to be like Teletubby Power Rangers fighting to a metal version of the Teletubby song, but it just left me feeling weird about the movie. That was the last thing I remembered after leaving the movie, and it just it put me off. So I was so glad this one took the Jimmies and they grounded them. They were truly terrifying in this movie. I love the fact that Sir Lord Jimmy Crystal, he seems so with it. He's a smart guy. I can't tell if he's got mental illness and that's why he's hearing voices in his head, or if he really thinks he hears his father's voice, but they elaborate a lot. He tells his whole story, and there's a scene where when he first meets Dr. Kelson, he's able to talk to him openly for the first time. And he even tells Dr. Kelson, I like you and I don't like too many people and you're easy to talk to. I love that scene. It was a very heartwarming scene between someone that's so pure and someone that's so evil. And then Dr. Kelson even says he's a doctor atheist. He's having a full conversation with a Satanist. So it was just a really cool thing that they did in this. There's a lot of beautiful scenes. This movie is shot very well. I will tell you, I was blown away with Nia DaCosta's vision on this one. They didn't try to do the crazy camera shots that they did in the first one that I thought they were doing too often. She did really neat things. It had the shaky cam. It felt very 28 Days Later, but it was so well done. And in the 28 Years Later, they had that one scene that was really beautiful. This one I felt like had multiple shots that made you feel the same way. And then it's got the scene where he dances to Iron Maiden, which it just made me smile. It was so fun. And then I love the faces of the fingers. They were so good at acting. You could tell they were so blown away because they couldn't believe what they were seeing. They've never heard anything like that. So I could only imagine not only being on some kind of hallucinogenic drug, but you're listening to this and watching the show he's putting on, and they were blown away. The acting in this movie from everybody was so good. I will say Spike, he definitely took a step back. He was great in this movie. He's such a good actor, especially for a kid his age. He stepped back so some other characters can step forward, which I think was a really smart thing. That way you're not getting overwhelmed with too many characters at once. With this one, they really stuck with the Jimmies, Samson, and Dr. Kelson. And they pretty much stuck to that area. And I will say, if you're looking for a zombie film, this one may not be for you. This one, it's more about the human element of the survivors. Normally, I don't like that. I will say I loved like The Walking Dead until they stopped doing it more about the zombies and it was more about the human struggled, and that's where they lost me. But this one, I just had so much fun learning about the different characters. I didn't worry about it. Didn't have all the zombie attacks. It had enough, but I will say this one is not a big zombie movie. It's more about people surviving in a virus apocalypse. But I highly recommend this one. I've seen it 3 times now. Even the 3rd time, I still loved it. I loved the music, the way it was shot, the cinematography, the soundtrack is great, and the acting is superb. I rated this one 5 out of 5 stars on my Letterboxd, which I think is a little high, but I can tell you since I first saw this movie, I haven't stopped thinking about it once. Every time I do think about it, I get excited. I feel like it's got a very high rewatchability for me. So just because of those things, I gave it a 5 out of 5 because I feel like a movie that hits all of those things is a great movie. And for me, I can see myself watching this again and again. And it's such a big step up from 28 years later. So I was stoked. I really felt like maybe Nia DaCosta watched my YouTube video, which I know she didn't, but she took the things that I was complaining about or wished I had more on, and they hit those on the head. The gore factor in this movie is top notch. The kills are disgusting. The scene where the Jimmies are cutting the skin off those people is gross. Even the scene where Spike stabs the Jimmy in the thigh and he's got a waterfall of blood coming out of an artery that he cut, which is what would happen, is disgusting. And I thought Spike did such a good job acting absolutely terrified, but trying to hide behind himself to just not be noticed by the Jimmies because he doesn't fit in at all and he knows it, but he was trapped. The only thing I could even gripe about just a little bit is it has been 28 years later since this virus first hit, and people surviving out there for 28 years later are still making stupid mistakes. There's this scene where these hunters are out and they're trying to be quiet. A infected shows up and this guy tells them they can't let him scream, and he walks up with a spear and stabs the infected in the shoulder with a spear, and of course causing it to scream, causing all these other infected to come running. I mean, they could have just let it pass, or he could have stabbed it somewhere it would have died, but it's just silly to me that these people have survived for 28 years. You think they would be better than that. But that's such a small gripe for me. So, I mean, if that's the only thing wrong with this movie, I mean, I'm down. Bring it on. So I highly recommend this movie. If you haven't seen it before, check it out. It just hit VOD, so you can watch it from home. And I think early March, mid-March is when it's coming out on DVD and Blu-ray. This is definitely going to be one I'm going to add to my collection because I have to own it. So this is Zomboy saying keep it scary. I will see you on the next video. I appreciate watching. Bye.
Begun, Satan's work is done. 666, number on the beast. Sacrifice is going down tonight. I'm coming back, I will return, and I'll possess your body and I'll make it burn. I have the fire.